Welcome to your deep dive on accurate thinking.
Oh, yes.
You sent us some really interesting material from Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
And it seems like you're interested in not just what he says about this concept, but how W makes his points.
Right.
Also, intriguing questions and illustrations.
Yeah.
It's like he's inviting us to think differently.
It's fascinating how he uses those techniques to really get under your skin, isn't it?
Yeah.
He wasn't just delivering information, he was trying to shift perspectives.
Okay, so we've got excerpts from a couple of Hill's lectures.
Okay.
Plus some more modern analysis. Ready to dive into the mind of Napoleon Hill.
Absolutely. Let's unpack what he meant by accurate thinking.
Hill doesn't waste any time.
Nope.
Right out of the gate. He says accurate thinking isn't just a helpful skill. It's the very foundation of success. He even goes so far as to say it's a very rare quality among men. That's a bold statement.
It is. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? If it's so essential, why is it so uncommon? Hill was really trying to shake people out of complacency and make them realize the power of their own minds.
So it's not just about being smart. It's about thinking in a specific way.
Exactly. Hill emphasized that it's about mastering your mind, not letting your emotions or biases run the show.
Right.
It's about being deliberate and intentional with your thoughts.
He talks a lot about inductive and deductive reasoning. For someone who maybe hasn't cracked open a logic textbook lately, could you remind us how those work?
Of course. Think of inductive reasoning like this. You see several dogs with floppy ears, so you conclude that all dogs have floppy ears. You're drawing a general conclusion based on limited observations.
Right, and that's where things can go wrong. My neighbor has a chihuahua with perfectly pointy ears.
Exactly. Inductive reasoning needs a lot of data to be reliable. Deductive reasoning is different. You start with a general principle, like all mammals have fur. Then you apply that principle to a specific case. My cat is a mammal. Therefore, my cat has fur.
So Hill's saying we need to be aware of how we're arriving at our conclusions. Are we jumping to conclusions based on flimsy evidence? Are we starting with faulty assumptions?
He's essentially advocating for what we now call critical thinking.
Right.
And this was back in the early 20th century. He was ahead of his time in recognizing the importance of evaluating information carefully.
Which feels incredibly relevant today, right? With the constant stream of information online. It's easy to get swept away by things that sound plausible, but might not hold up under scrutiny.
Absolutely. Hill would probably be horrified by the misinformation swirling around today. He was a big believer in verifying facts, in not just accepting things at face value.
Okay, so we need to be careful about our reasoning. But Hill also dives into the types of facts themselves.
Yes.
He says there are important facts and unimportant facts. And he has this great suggestion of writing down all the facts you dealt with yesterday and categorizing them. That's like a mental decluttering exercise.
It is. And it forces you to ask, what information is actually serving me? What's helping me move towards my goals? And what's just mental clutter? It's a powerful way to become more intentional with your thinking.
It's fascinating how he connects accurate thinking to this idea of purpose. He seems to be saying, if you don't know where you're going, any fact could seem important, and you'll end up drowning in information.
You're picking up on a key theme here.
Yeah.
Hill was all about focusing your energy on what truly matters. And that starts with identifying your goals, and then using accurate thinking to figure out how to achieve them.
Okay, so we're seeing the link between accurate thinking and success. But what about opinions?
Yeah.
Hill has some pretty strong opinions about opinions. He basically says they're worthless if they're not based on facts. He even uses this vivid imagery, saying biases and emotional feelings are the fathers to facts.
Hill wasn't afraid to make bold statements. And while that particular phrasing might raise some eyebrows today, the underlying message is still relevant. How often do we form opinions without really examining the evidence?
It's easy to get caught up in what other people are saying, especially when it confirms our existing beliefs.
And those unexamined opinions can lead to all sorts of problems, right?
Yeah.
Conflicts, misunderstandings, poor decisions.
Speaking of decisions, Hill has this anecdote about President Woodrow Wilson. That really brings this point home. Do you want to tell us about that one?
Sure. Hill was working with Wilson during World War I, and he asked the president what impact he thought the war would have on civilization. And Wilson's response was incredibly insightful. He said, I cannot answer your question because I have no facts on which to base an opinion.
I find that so humbling. Even the President of the United States, with all the information at his disposal, was unwilling to speculate without evidence.
It shows a remarkable level of intellectual humility, doesn't it?
It does.
Wilson understood that accurate thinking requires more than just gut feelings or personal preferences. It demands a commitment to seeking out the truth, even if it's uncomfortable.
That story about Wilson really makes me think about the pressure we all face to have an opinion on everything.
Yeah.
Especially now with social media. It feels like you're supposed to have a hot take on every issue under the sun.
It's exhausting, isn't it?
It is.
And it can lead to a lot of shallow thinking. Hill would probably urge us to be more discerning about what we choose to engage with, to focus on the issues that truly matter to us, and to be willing to say, I don't know enough about that to form an informed opinion.
It's almost like he's giving us permission to not have an opinion on everything.
Exactly. And that frees up our mental energy to focus on what's truly important.
Hill then tells this amusing anecdote about asking a Quaker for the time.
Oh, yeah.
The Quaker meticulously checks his pocket watch before saying, well, sir, according to this alleged timepiece, it appears to be approximately 1 minute and 10 seconds past 12 o'clock.
Wow.
What's Hill getting at with this story? They're more than just a funny observation, right?
It is. Think about the level of precision the Quaker uses. He's not just saying it's 12 o'clock. He's qualifying his statement, acknowledging that even his watch might not be perfectly accurate.
So he's demonstrating a level of intellectual humility, even when stating something as seemingly simple as the time.
Precisely. Hill is encouraging us to be more mindful of the language we use, to be aware of the limitations of our knowledge. He wants us to avoid making absolute statements, when the reality might be more nuanced.
This reminds me of his emphasis on source identification. He wants us to be constantly asking ourselves, where is this information coming from? Is this source reliable? What biases might be at play?
He even gives us a powerful tool for doing just that, his famous magic question.
Ah, yes. The question that can either spark a fascinating conversation or make you the most annoying person in the room. How do you know?
Yeah. It's a question that can be incredibly illuminating, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It forces people to think about the basis of their beliefs, to articulate their reasoning.
But Hill makes it clear this question isn't about being a know-it-all or shutting down conversation.
Right. It's about intellectual self-defense. It's about protecting ourselves from misinformation and from falling prey to our own biases.
So it's a way of engaging in thoughtful dialogue, of digging deeper into ideas.
It's about approaching conversations with curiosity and a genuine desire to understand, even if you ultimately disagree.
Hill then lays out 7 specific rules for accurate thinking. It's like he's giving us a practical toolkit for putting all these ideas into action.
And some of these rules feel particularly relevant to our lives today. He warns against blindly accepting other people's opinions as facts, especially when those opinions are based on hearsay or emotional biases.
It makes you think about how often we just parrot what we've heard without really questioning it.
He also cautions against accepting free advice without carefully considering the source and their potential motives.
It's like the old saying, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Hill would definitely agree. He urges us to be discerning about where we get our information and to be wary of anyone who seems overly eager to give us unsolicited advice.
He's also big on recognizing our own biases. He even says that anything which causes one to speak negatively of others will bear close watching, as it may lead to the discovery of a serious flaw in one's character.
Wow. He's suggesting that negativity itself can be a red flag, a sign that we might be letting our emotions cloud our judgment.
And this ties back to his point about the importance of mastering our minds. Accurate thinking requires us to be aware of our emotional baggage and how it might be influencing our perceptions.
He also gives us a strategy for gathering information more effectively. He suggests we avoid revealing what information we're looking for when asking others, because people have a tendency to try to please or tell us what they think we want to hear instead. He encourages us to ask well-measured, tactful questions to get to the truth.
It's about being a bit of a detective, isn't it? Uncovering the facts without leading the witness.
He also reminds us that truth is self-evident and that we should develop the intuition to sense what is true and what is false. He's talking about developing a sort of inner compass, guided by both logic and intuition.
And of course, he brings us back to his magic question as a way to challenge flimsy claims and to encourage deeper thinking. He reminds us to stand firm in our pursuit of evidence, even if it makes people uncomfortable. These rules are so practical, and they resonate so strongly even today. It's like Hill was looking into the future, anticipating the challenges we'd face in a world overflowing with information.
He understood that the human mind is both incredibly powerful and incredibly vulnerable, and he dedicated his life to helping people harness that power and protect themselves from those vulnerabilities.
As we're talking about all these rules and techniques, I'm realizing that accurate thinking isn't just about being right or wrong. It's about a way of being in the world.
That's a great observation. It's about approaching life with a sense of curiosity, humility, and a commitment to seeking out the truth.
It's about being open to new information, even if it challenges our existing beliefs.
It's about recognizing that we all have biases, and that those biases can lead us astray if we're not careful.
It's about being willing to admit when we don't know something, and to ask questions to deepen our understanding.
It's about recognizing that our thinking has real-world consequences, that the way we think shapes the reality we create for ourselves.
This is starting to feel very personal. I'm thinking about how often I let my emotions get in the way of clear thinking, how I jump to conclusions, how I get caught up in the drama of the day.
And that's precisely why Hill believed accurate thinking was so crucial for success. He saw how often people sabotage themselves with negative thoughts, with limiting beliefs, with a lack of clarity about their goals.
He was really emphasizing the connection between our inner world and our outer world.
Absolutely. He understood that our thoughts create our reality. And while that might sound a bit woo-woo to some people, there's actually a lot of modern scientific research that supports this idea.
I'm thinking about the work of neuroscientists who study neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change and adapt throughout our lives. They've shown that our thoughts can literally rewire our brains, creating new neural pathways that can either help us or hinder us.
Exactly. And Hill was onto something big here. He understood that if we want to change our lives, we need to start by changing our thinking.
This reminds me of a concept that's become very popular in recent years: manifestation. The idea that we can attract what we want into our lives by focusing our thoughts and beliefs on it.
And while Hill might not have used that specific terminology, the underlying principle is very similar. He believed that our dominant thoughts become our reality. If we constantly dwell on negativity, fear, and doubt, we're more likely to attract those things into our lives.
But if we focus on positive, constructive thoughts, if we believe in ourselves and our abilities, we're more likely to achieve our goals and create a life that's aligned with our values.
He was essentially saying that our minds are like gardens. If we plant seeds of negativity, we're going to get a crop of weeds. But if we plant seeds of positivity, abundance, and success, that's what we'll harvest.
It's a powerful metaphor. And it makes me wonder, how do we cultivate that mental garden? How do we make sure we're planting the right seeds?
Well, Hill believed that it all starts with definiteness of purpose.
Okay, remind us what he means by that.
It's about having a clear, specific goal in mind. It's about knowing what you want to achieve and being unwavering in your commitment to achieving it.
And how does definiteness of purpose connect to accurate thinking?
Imagine you're trying to solve a complex puzzle, but you don't know what the final picture is supposed to look like. You're just randomly trying pieces, wasting time and energy.
But if you have that clear picture in mind, you can start to filter out the irrelevant pieces. You can focus your energy on finding the ones that fit, the ones that will help you complete the picture.
Exactly. Your definite purpose acts as a mental filter, helping you prioritize the information that's actually important for achieving your goals. It also keeps you motivated. When you know exactly what you're working towards, you're less likely to get sidetracked by distractions or give up when things get tough.
So it's not just about thinking accurately, it's about thinking accurately about the things that will actually move us forward.
And that's where things get really interesting, isn't it? Because it starts to raise questions about our values, our priorities, our purpose in life.
It's like accurate thinking becomes a tool for not just achieving success, but for defining what success even means to us.
And that's a journey we all have to take for ourselves. There's no one-size-fits-all answer. But Hill gives us a framework for asking the right questions, for examining our beliefs, for aligning our thoughts and actions with our deepest desires.
It's a process of self-discovery, guided by the principles of accurate thinking.
And it's a process that can be incredibly rewarding, both personally and professionally.
So we talked about the benefits of accurate thinking, but Hill also warns about the mental traps that can prevent us from thinking clearly. He talks about bias, misinformation, emotional reactions, and overgeneralization. These are like mental pitfalls that can trip us up even when we're trying to be rational.
And they're incredibly common, even among people who consider themselves to be good thinkers. Hill's point is that we need to be constantly vigilant, constantly checking ourselves to make sure we're not falling prey to these traps.
So awareness is key. Just knowing about these traps makes us more likely to catch ourselves when we're starting to slip. But what about those times when we slip up?
Right.
It can feel discouraging, like we're failing at this whole accurate thinking thing.
Hill wouldn't see it as failure, but as an opportunity for growth. He believed in the power of self-reflection, of learning from our mistakes. Each time we catch ourselves thinking inaccurately, it's a chance to course correct, to refine our thinking process.
It's a reminder that this is an ongoing journey, not a destination.
Exactly. And it's a journey that can lead to incredible rewards. Hill believed that accurate thinking was the key to unlocking our full potential, to achieving success in all areas of life.
So how do we make this accurate thinking a habit? It's easy to get inspired during a deep dive like this. But then real life comes along, with all its distractions and demands. How do we integrate these principles into our daily routines?
Hill emphasizes the importance of practice. He believed that if we consciously practice accurate thinking, it eventually becomes second nature. It's like training a muscle. The more we use it, the stronger it gets.
So what are some practical ways we can work out our accurate thinking muscles?
Hill suggests we constantly question information, not in a cynical or suspicious way, but in a curious and inquisitive way.
It's about approaching information with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Exactly. Ask yourself, where is this information coming from? Is the source reliable? What are the underlying motives here? What evidence supports this claim?
It sounds like he's encouraging us to be more like investigative journalists.
Yeah.
Digging deeper to uncover the truth.
He also emphasizes the importance of seeking diverse perspectives. Don't just surround yourself with people who agree with you. Talk to people who have different viewpoints. Read articles from a variety of sources, even those you might disagree with.
It can be uncomfortable, challenging our own beliefs. But that's where real growth happens.
Hill would agree with that. He understood that our minds can become stagnant if we're not constantly exposed to new ideas.
He also encourages us to reflect before acting, to pause and consider all angles before making a decision.
This is about being proactive rather than reactive. It's about taking the time to gather information, analyze the situation, and then choose the course of action that's aligned with your goals and values.
This makes me think about all the times I've made impulsive decisions, only to regret them later if I had just paused, taken a breath, and thought things through more carefully.
Hill would say that those are valuable lessons. We all make mistakes, but it's what we learn from those mistakes that matters most.
So it's about developing that mental discipline, that ability to control our impulses and make choices based on logic and reason.
And that discipline can extend to all areas of our lives, from our careers to our relationships to our personal well-being. Hill believed that accurate thinking could lead to greater success, happiness, and fulfillment.
It's like a ripple effect. When we think more accurately, we make better decisions, we communicate more effectively, we build stronger relationships, and we ultimately create a more fulfilling life for ourselves.
It's a powerful idea, isn't it? And it's all within our reach. We all have the capacity to become more accurate thinkers. It just takes practice, commitment, and a willingness to challenge our own assumptions.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive into the mind of Napoleon Hill. I feel like I have a whole new set of tools for navigating the world with more clarity and purpose.
I'm glad to hear that. Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about progress. Keep practicing, keep questioning, keep refining your thinking process, and you'll be amazed at what you can achieve.
And next time you hear a bold claim or feel your emotions getting the better of you, just ask yourself,
how do you know?
That's it for this deep dive. Until next time, keep those minds sharp and keep thinking accurately.